So, you've probably heard of Stephen Covey's 7 Habits, right? They're famous for a reason. But today, we're not talking about the habits themselves. We're going one level deeper. We're going to unpack the ideas that come before the habits, the foundational shift in thinking that Covey says is the real source of effectiveness. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's start with a question I bet you've asked yourself at some point. You decide to make a change, you get totally fired up, you try some new technique, and then, a few weeks later, poof, you're right back where you started. So frustrating. Why does that happen over and over again?
Well, Covey has a name for this cycle. He calls it the success trap. And it's that weird feeling of being stuck, even when, on the surface, everything looks great. You know, you're busy, you're checking things off your to-do list, but deep down, there's this nagging sense that something important is missing. And these are the kinds of painful problems he's talking about. These aren't small annoyances, right? This is the deep stuff. The career that's thriving while your family life is falling apart. The promises you can't even seem to keep to yourself. These frustrations are clues that the real issue isn't what we're doing, but something much, much deeper.
And here is the absolute heart of the issue. We're basically putting Band-Aids on deep wounds. We're using quick fixes and surface-level techniques to solve chronic, underlying problems. It's like taking an aspirin for a broken leg. Sure, it might dull the pain for a minute, but it does absolutely nothing to fix the actual break. So, what is that underlying break? According to Covey, it comes from a huge shift in how we, as a culture, even think about success. It's a move away from our foundation.
Covey did something fascinating. He studied over 200 years of books and articles about success in America, and he found this incredible pattern. For the first 150 years or so, it was all about what he calls the character ethic. But then, right after World War I, everything changed. The focus shifted to something totally different, the personality ethic.
And you can see the difference right here. It is just night and day. The character ethic is about who you actually are. It's about your integrity, your humility, your courage. It's the stuff on the inside. The personality ethic, on the other hand, is all about how you appear. It's your public image, communication skills, a positive attitude. It's the difference between being good and just looking good.
This quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson just nails the problem, doesn't it? If you're trying to use personality ethic tricks, but your character is flawed, people can feel it. You can't fake trust. You can't fake integrity. Your real self, who you actually are, is always going to be louder than the words you're saying.
Okay, so this leads us to another core idea that explains why this all matters so much. And it's this concept that our personal view of the world, the map inside our own head, is what controls everything we do.
Now, the fancy word for this is a paradigm. It sounds a little academic, I know, but it's actually a pretty simple idea. A paradigm is just the lens through which you see the world. It's your frame of reference, your assumptions. The easiest way to think about it is as a map.
And this is absolutely critical to understand. The map is not the territory. Our beliefs, our perceptions, that's just our map of reality. It's not reality itself. And the big question is, what happens if you're trying to navigate life with the wrong map?
I mean, just think about it. Imagine you're trying to find a specific address in Chicago, but the map you're using is a map of Detroit. You can work on your behavior, right? You can run faster. You can work on your attitude, be super positive about being lost. But will any of it help? No way. You'll just get to the wrong place faster, and with a smile on your face. The problem isn't your effort or your attitude. The problem is the map.
And this brings us to one of the most powerful concepts in Covey's work, the aha moment. That sudden, powerful realization that your map has been wrong the entire time. It's called a paradigm shift. To really bring this to life, Covey tells this incredible story. Picture this. You're the captain of a massive battleship out on maneuvers in thick fog. You can barely see a thing. Suddenly, the lookout yells that there's a light dead ahead, and you're on a collision course. Your paradigm, your map, is clear. You're a battleship. You have the right of way.
So you signal the other vessel, change your course. But the response you get back says, no, you change your course. This does not compute. It doesn't fit your map of the situation at all.
So now you're getting irritated. You pull rank. You signal again, basically saying, listen up, I'm a battleship. Move it. You're absolutely certain that your power, your status, will force them to see reality your way.
And then comes the reply that just completely shatters your entire worldview in an instant. I'm a lighthouse. And in that single moment, everything changes. The map was wrong, reality just showed up, and a new, much more accurate map was forced on you, whether you liked it or not.
And that is the whole point. Principles, things like fairness, integrity, honesty, human dignity, they are the lighthouses. They're the territory. They don't move. You can't break them. You can only break yourself against them. Our job isn't to change the lighthouse, it's to make sure our map lines up with where the lighthouse really is. So where does all this lead? It leads to Covey's fundamental solution, his core philosophy for change. He calls it the inside-out approach.
And inside out is exactly what it sounds like. It means you stop trying to fix your boss, your spouse, your kids first. You start with the person in the mirror. You work on the deepest part of you, your paradigms, your character, your true motives. The whole idea is that you have to win private victories, like keeping a promise to yourself, before you can ever have lasting public victories with other people.
And honestly, the absolute best way to understand this whole thing is through Aesop's classic fable about the goose that laid the golden eggs. It teaches such a powerful lesson about what it takes to be truly effective.
So think about it. The golden eggs, that's the result you want. That's P for production. The goose is the asset, the thing that creates the result. That's PC for production capability. Now, if you get greedy and focus only on the eggs, you neglect the goose, and eventually it dies. No more golden eggs. But if you only pamper the goose and never collect the eggs, you'll starve. Real effectiveness is in the balance, nurturing the goose so you can get a steady, sustainable supply of golden eggs.
And this brings us right back to where we started, but with a whole new perspective. The reason our quick fixes fail, the reason we feel stuck, is that we keep trying to fix the situation out there. But Covey's point is that so often, the real problem is the lens we're using. The way we see the problem is the problem.
So, as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with a question to chew on. Before we can change our results, before we can even begin to implement new habits, we first have to be willing to look at our own maps. We have to be willing to question them, and maybe even redraw them completely. So, what's one map in your life that just might need a second look?
All right, let's dive into a habit that honestly can change your entire approach to, well, everything. We're talking about Habit 1 from Stephen Covey's game-changing book, Be Proactive.
So, let me just ask you something, straight up. Are you really the one in the driver's seat of your own life? Or do you sometimes feel like you're just a passenger, kind of getting taken for a ride by whatever happens? It's a simple question, but man, the answer is a big deal. You see, to really get what it means to be proactive, we've got to look at the flip side first. We need to explore these common mindsets that tell us, nah, we're not actually in control at all.
Think about it like this. Who's writing the script for your life? Is it really you? Or does it feel like you were just playing a part, reading lines that were handed to you by your genetics, your childhood, or your current situation? This whole idea has a name: determinism.
And you've heard these arguments before, right? They're the usual suspects. There's genetic determinism. That's the one that says, oh, I have a bad temper because it's in my DNA. Then you have psychic determinism, which blames your parents and your upbringing for everything. And of course, there's environmental determinism, which points the finger at your boss, your partner, your job. Anything out there is the reason you're stuck. These are basically just scripts that let us off the hook.
But what if those scripts are just stories we tell ourselves? There's this incredibly powerful story, one that comes from the absolute worst circumstances imaginable, and it just completely shatters this whole idea of determinism.
Let me tell you about a man named Viktor Frankl. He was a psychiatrist and he was a prisoner in the Nazi death camps during World War II. He lost almost everyone: his parents, his brother, his wife. He was subjected to torture, starvation. I mean, it's pretty much impossible to imagine a scenario where someone has less control over their life.
And yet, in the middle of all that horror, Frankl discovered something profound. He called it the last of the human freedoms. He realized his Nazi captors could control his environment, they could torture his body, but there was one thing they could never, ever touch: his response. That little gap, that space between what happens to us and how we choose to respond to it, that is where all our power and freedom live.
And that, right there, is the heart of proactivity. It's not just about being energetic or taking initiative. The real meaning is right there in the word responsibility itself. Break it down. Responsibility. It's your ability to choose your response. It means your life is a function of your decisions, not your conditions.
So what does this actually look like in the real world day-to-day? Let's get practical and break down the difference between a reactive mindset and a proactive one. You know, one of the biggest clues is just the language we use. It's a dead giveaway. Reactive language basically passes the buck. There's nothing I can do. He makes me so mad. See that? You're giving someone else the remote control to your emotions. I have to do this. But listen to the shift with proactive language. Let's look at our alternatives. I control my own feelings. I will choose. It's a total power shift from being a victim to being the one in charge.
And this goes way deeper than just our words. It's about what's actually driving us. Reactive people are driven by their feelings, by their circumstances, by the social weather. If people are nice to them, they feel great. If people are rude, their day is ruined. But proactive people, they're driven by their values. They carry their own weather with them. A sunny day or a rainy day outside doesn't matter because what guides their actions comes from the inside.
Okay, so you're probably thinking, this sounds great, but how do I actually do this? How do I apply it when things get tough? Well, Covey gives us the super simple but really powerful model to help us focus our energy where it actually makes a difference.
So I want you to ask yourself this, and be honest. When you think about all the things you worry about, where does your energy, your focus, actually go? The answer tells you pretty much everything you need to know about how proactive you are.
Picture two circles. The big one is your circle of concern. It's filled with everything you worry about. The news, the economy, what other people think, their mistakes. Reactive people live here. They pour all their energy into that circle, and you know what happens? Their actual ability to do anything shrinks. But proactive people, they focus on the smaller circle inside, the circle of influence. This is the stuff they can actually do something about, their habits, their choices, their work ethic. And the cool part is, the more they work in that circle, the bigger it gets.
All right, let's bring this all home with the core philosophy behind being proactive. It's really about a fundamental shift in where we think our problems and our solutions actually come from.
Anytime we think the problem is out there, that thought is the problem. That's the mindset of the haves. I'll be happy when I have more money, or if only I had a different job. It's an outside-in approach. The proactive way flips that script completely. It starts from the inside out. It focuses on the B's. I can be more patient. I can be more creative. I can be a better listener. You work on who you are first, and that is what creates positive change out there.
So how do you start building this proactive muscle? Covey gives us a simple challenge, a 30-day test. For just 1 month, try this. 1. Work only in your circle of influence. If you can't control it, let it go. 2. Make small commitments to yourself and keep them. Build that integrity. 3. Be a source of light, not a judge. Be part of the solution. And 4. When you mess up, and you will, just own it fast. Admit it, fix it, and learn from it. It's not about being perfect. It's about making progress.
Because look, at the end of the day, just knowing all this stuff doesn't change a thing. The real power is in putting it into action. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. Based on everything we just talked about, what's the first small, proactive choice you're going to make today?
All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we are diving into something huge, something absolutely fundamental to, well, everything. Trust. We're going to break down Stephen Covey's incredible framework for building relationships that actually last, what he calls public victory. And you might be surprised where it all begins.
So, let's just kick things off with this quote from Covey because it hits so hard. He tells this story, right, about a guy whose wife was always grilling him whenever he was away. And the reason, well, it was simple, but wow, was it profound. See, he'd met her while he was still married to his first wife. His past behavior, his actions, had created this massive trust problem that, just talking about it was never going to solve.
And that really tees up the big question for today, doesn't it? If you can't talk your way out of these problems, how do you behave your way into better relationships? We're going to get past all the quick fixes and really dig into what actually works. Okay, so section 1. First, you've got to master yourself. And honestly, this first principle from Covey, it's a total game changer. The idea is that before you can even think about winning with other people, what he calls public victory, you have to look inward. It all starts with you.
And check this out. The order of operations here is absolutely critical. You can't just jump ahead. You have to start with step 1, achieving private victory. That's all about self-mastery, discipline, your own character. Only after you've done that work can you move on to step 2, earning public victory, which is that success with others. Covey's analogy is just perfect. It's like trying to jump into calculus when you haven't even learned basic algebra. It's not going to work. You can't skip the fundamentals.
And this is such a key point. You see, true interdependence,
where you have these amazing productive relationships, it's not the same thing as being needy or dependent. Not at all. It's a choice. And it's a choice that only truly independent, self-assured people can make. It always comes back to your own character being that solid foundation.
All right, so let's move on to the next big idea. This is the core metaphor that Covey uses to take this, kind of abstract concept of trust and make it super concrete and easy to understand. He calls it the emotional bank account. And yeah, it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. Think about it. In every single one of your relationships, there's this invisible bank account. And the currency? It's trust. It's that feeling of safety you have with someone. And just like with a real bank account, your actions are either deposits, building up that trust, or they're withdrawals, draining it away.
And when you look at it side by side like this, it becomes crystal clear, right? Deposits, these are the good things. Simple stuff, really. Courtesy, kindness, actually doing what you say you're going to do, giving a sincere apology. Then you have the withdrawals, disrespect, breaking promises, flying off the handle. You can see how one side builds things up and the other just tears it all down.
Now, here's the magic. When your trust account is full, when that balance is high, everything changes. Communication is just easy. It's quick. It's effective. You don't have to second-guess everything. Heck, you can even mess up sometimes. And that huge reserve of trust you've built up acts like a safety net. It covers for you.
But flip that coin over and yikes. When that account is empty or even worse, overdrawn, every single conversation feels like you're walking through a minefield. You're constantly on edge, choosing every word so carefully. It just breeds tension, defensiveness, office politics. You see it in families, in marriages, in whole companies. It's draining.
Okay, so if this emotional bank account is so incredibly important, the big question is, how do we fill it up? How do we actually make deposits? Let's get into the specifics, the concrete actions you can take. So Covey lays out these 6 major deposits, and you can see them right here. Things like really understanding the individual, not just what you think they want, attending to the little things, we'll talk more about that in a sec, keeping commitments, clarifying expectations, that's a big one, showing personal integrity. And finally, number 6, and this one is so huge, apologizing sincerely when you mess up. Because let's face it, we all make withdrawals sometimes. I want to zoom in on number 2 for a second. Attending to the little things. Because this is so true. In relationships, the little things are actually the big things. Covey tells this amazing story about taking his sons on this big day out. They did the whole shebang. Gymnastics, movies, food, everything. But the moment that really mattered, it was a tiny, almost unconscious gesture. He saw his 4-year-old son had fallen asleep, so he just quietly took off his coat and draped it over him.
So later that night, back at home, he notices his 6-year-old is being really quiet, kind of thoughtful. So he asks him, "Hey, what's on your mind?" And the little boy looks at him and asks this, "Daddy, if I were cold, would you put your coat around me too?" Wow. Just think about that. Of all the big, exciting things they did that day, that was the moment that landed. That little act of kindness was the biggest deposit he made all day. It just goes to show you, right?
Okay, so we've talked about self-mastery, we've talked about the emotional bank account. So what's the mindset, what's the actual philosophy that holds all of this together and keeps those accounts full? Well, that brings us to our final section, the win-win mindset. And let's be super clear about this. Think win-win is not some slick negotiation tactic. It's a whole philosophy for life. It's a frame of mind and a frame of heart, really, that is always looking for a solution that benefits everyone involved. It's this deep belief that there's a third alternative out there. It's not about I win, you lose, or even you win, I lose. It's about finding a better way, a higher way that we create together. And this slide just lays out the fundamental difference perfectly. On one side, you have the scarcity mentality. This is the idea that there's only so much to go around. Like there's only one pie. So if you get a big slice, that means there's less for me. Life is a zero-sum game. But on the other side, you've got the abundance mentality. This is the belief that, hey, there's plenty out there for everybody. And you know what? If we need more pie, we can just work together and bake more pies. Success isn't something you take from others, it's something you share and create more of.
So again, this isn't about learning a trick. A true win-win attitude has to come from your character. It's built on these 3 essential traits. First, integrity. You do what you say you'll do. You keep your promises. Second, maturity. And this is a great definition. It's the balance between courage, speaking your mind,
And consideration, listening to others. And third, that abundance mentality we were just talking about. You need all three for win-win to be genuine.
So as we bring this all home, the biggest takeaway is this. Building trust, achieving that public victory, it's not a personality hack. It's a principle-centered approach that starts with your own character. It starts with you. So I'm going to leave you with a question to really think about. Pick the most important relationship in your life and ask yourself, honestly, what's the balance of your emotional bank account with that person right now?
All right, let's talk about something we've all felt. You ever feel so swamped, so busy just doing the work that you don't have a second to think about how you could be doing it better? Today, we are diving deep into the one principle designed to fix that exact problem. Stephen Covey's 7th habit, sharpen the saw. And let me tell you, this is the one that fuels all the others.
And this quote from Bruce Barton, it just nails the spirit of what we're about to get into. It's a powerful reminder that those little things, the small, consistent acts of just taking care of yourself, they aren't little at all. In fact, they're probably the most important things you can do. They're the foundation for literally everything else.
So to really get what this is all about, Covey tells this simple but brilliant story. It perfectly illustrates a trap that, let's be honest, every single one of us falls into. The trap of being too busy to get better.
So picture this. You're out for a walk in the woods and you stumble upon this guy who was just going at it. He is working himself to the bone, just feverishly sawing away at this huge tree. The guy's drenched in sweat, totally exhausted.
You kind of have to stop and watch for a second. The sheer effort is just radiating off of him. So you walk over and ask, "Whoa, buddy, you look beat. How long have you been doing this?"
And he barely even looks up from his work, just kind of gasps, "Over 5 hours. And I'm exhausted. This is backbreaking work."
You glance down at his saw and bam! The problem is crystal clear. The blade is completely dull. So you offer up a really simple logical suggestion. Hey, why don't you just take a quick break for a few minutes and sharpen that saw? You'd be done so much faster.
And his response is the punchline to this whole thing. He looks at you, annoyed, and says, "I don't have time to sharpen the saw. I'm too busy sawing." I mean, it's ridiculous, right? But how often do we do that? We get so wrapped up in the doing that we forget to maintain the actual tool that's doing the work, ourselves.
And that right there, that is Habit 7 in a nutshell. It's all about taking the time to sharpen your saw. It's the habit of self-renewal. It's about preserving and, more importantly, enhancing the greatest asset you will ever have, which is you.
Okay, so what does it actually mean to sharpen your saw? Well, it's not just one thing. Covey breaks it down into 4 key areas, 4 dimensions of our lives that are all connected and all need attention.
Think of yourself like this chart. You've got these 4 essential parts: your physical self, your spiritual core, your mental sharpness, and your social and emotional well-being. If you let any one of these get dull, the whole system suffers. You're just not as effective. The real key here is balanced renewal. And here's the kicker. Here's why this is so hard. Sharpening the saw is what we call a quadrant 2 activity. It's super important, but it almost never feels urgent, right? There's always another email to answer, another fire to put out. This kind of stuff, it demands that we be proactive. We have to schedule it, because life won't just give you the time.
Okay, so the theory is great, but how do we actually do it? Let's get practical. Let's break down exactly how you can start sharpening the saw in each of those 4 dimensions.
First up, the physical. This one's pretty straightforward. It's about taking care of your body. And you don't need a fancy gym membership. Covey lays out a simple program you can do right at home, hitting 3 key areas. Endurance, with things like jogging or biking, flexibility through good old-fashioned stretching, and strength, using resistance exercises like push-ups or squats.
I love this explanation from an exercise physiologist. He says that the real benefit, the real growth, happens right at the very end of your workout. It's when you push that muscle to the point where the fiber tears a little bit. And what happens? Nature overcompensates and builds it back even stronger. Now think about that. That's not just true for muscles, is it? It's the same principle for building our emotional muscles, like patience or courage. Next up, the spiritual dimension. And this isn't necessarily about religion. It's about connecting with your core, your values, what matters most to you. Covey tells this great story about a man whose doctor gave him these 4 prescriptions for a day of renewal. They were simple things. Really listen to the world around you, reconnect with happy memories, take a hard look at your motives, and then let go of your worries. It's a beautiful path back to your center.
All right, let's talk about your mind. You've got a pretty stark choice here.
On one hand, you can actively expand it by reading challenging books, writing down your thoughts, planning out your goals. Or you can let it atrophy. Some studies show the average person spends 35 to 45 hours a week zoned out in front of the TV. That's a full-time job of mental inactivity. Your education can't stop when you leave school. It has to be a lifelong project.
And finally, the social and emotional side of things. Now, what's cool about this one is you don't really have to carve out extra time. You sharpen this part of your saw in your everyday interactions with people, just by putting the other habits into practice. Instead of trying to win an argument, you seek a win-win solution. Instead of waiting for your turn to talk, you actually listen to understand. That's how you sharpen your relationships.
So what's the big payoff for all this? Why go to all this trouble? Well, it's about more than just not burning out. It's about creating something incredible, an upward spiral of growth, where every little improvement you make in one area actually boosts your performance across the board.
This is synergy in its purest form. When you invest in one dimension, you get a return in all the others. Seriously, go for a run to sharpen your physical saw, and I guarantee your mind will feel clearer. Spend 10 minutes meditating for your spiritual saw, and you'll find you're more emotionally resilient all day. It's this beautiful, powerful cycle of continuous improvement. Okay, this all sounds amazing, but let's be real. How do we actually make this happen in our crazy busy lives? Well, Covey gives us a simple, powerful, and totally doable framework. He calls it the daily private victory.
It really comes down to this number: 1 hour a day. That's it. That's the challenge. Just 60 minutes dedicated to you, to renewing yourself physically, spiritually, and mentally. You can think of it as this little victory you win for yourself before the rest of the world even gets a piece of you.
And I want you to think about this. Can you name any other single-hour activity that gives you a better return on your investment? I don't think you can. This 1 hour builds the deep inner strength you need to handle whatever life throws at you. It literally improves the quality of every single one of the other 23 hours in your day. So we're going to end with the only question that really matters, and it's directed right at you. This isn't just some interesting theory, it's a personal challenge. Look at these 4 dimensions: physical, spiritual, mental, and social or emotional. What is one small thing, just one, that you are going to do today to sharpen your saw?